Well, it looks like Banggood have sent me more kits. Not for free, unfortunately. They required money in exchange, but never mind. I have got a whole swathe full of all sorts of goodies and even another one there. So we're going to get back into building a few Banggood kits. And let's start off with this one, which I think, well, let's have a look. I can't even get into the damn thing. Right, here we go. We have a, oh look, a micro USB cable. Makes a change from mini USB, I have to admit. And we have, what do we have? We have a battery that looks distinctly rechargeable. And we have some headphones, which actually feel quite nice. They don't seem too bad at all. They may sound horrible, of course, but they look nice. It's got like a material cord effect going on there. Well, they're all right. Fair enough. We'll see. And we have some case parts. We have a board of some sort. What's going on here? Practice board. Practice board. I don't know. I can't remember half of these things. I order them. So yeah, we've got the usual clear acrylic case parts that are covered in protective paper, which we'll peel off later. And we have another board here. Get it the right way up. So we're dealing with surface mount. There doesn't look like there's much in the way of through hole going on there. And transformer? A transformer figure head? No, I don't remember even ordering that. Well, it looks interesting, so we might as well have a play. And we have a bag of bits. Lots of resistors and obviously bits and pieces to put the case together. Let's get it open. Let's have a look at the parts. A load of stuff has fallen out here. I think these are just cutouts from the laser cutting or whatever it is that they use to make the cases. Put those to one side because I doubt we're going to need those. So let's see if we can pop this little bag open and see what we got inside. So we got, as I say, lots of surface mount going on here. I don't mind surface mount components. They are, of course, very fiddly, but you do tend to get more interesting kits that seem to arrive in plastic bags that are absolutely impossible to open. What the hell's going on? Do you know what? I can't get that open. Now I can. Right, here we go. Oh, hey, many things. Right, what have we got here? We have got probably button caps. Let's get rid of these bags. Don't need those. Certainly don't need that bit. Get the casing out of the way because we're not going to need that. No instructions, which is pretty typical, but they're probably online. So we have some tiny, very tiny either resistors or capacitors. I can't really tell here. I would say those are resistors. I don't know. What else have we got going on? We have, are those out? I can't, do you know what? They're so tiny. I can't. Let me have a look under me. I do not know what they look like. They might be. I think those are LEDs. Yeah, they're probably LEDs. What else have we got? Hardware to screw it all together. A fairly tiny switch. Very tiny. Off switch, I presume. And we've got, I'm guessing that's a micro USB jack. Yep. So, and we have an audio cable. I'm not sure if this, oh, What's that? Another board. I'd imagine that's a riser board, so that's going to go at the side, I would imagine. And you can see there the symbol for the headphone and the USB port. So that's going to stand up there at the side of one of the cases or whatever, and a bunch more capacitors or resistors. We have a chip, and what have we got here? God knows what that is. I don't know. I just can't see it. These components are absolutely minuscule. Anyway, oh, we've got a push to make switch here. A couple of those. Oh no, I tell a lie, 3 of those, which I assume will eventually look like that when they're through the case. So there we have it. That's kind of it. So yes, basically, if you haven't already worked it out yet, we have an FM radio, little portable FM radio. Nice little kit. We have got, there's a practice board there. I'm kind of, I don't know whether we need that or not. So we got these two. I would imagine we do actually, because yeah, we've got we seem to have a facility for 4 buttons here. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got, what's this, plus and minus up there, so that's going to be volume, and that's going to be, I guess, for changing the channel. I would imagine it's got an auto scan or something like that. And a rechargeable battery, so we've got a rechargeable FM radio, which is nice. Okay, so what I need to do is hook out the instructions for it, which I'm guessing are going to be online somewhere, and start heating up the soldering iron, and we'll get cracking on this one. Right, okay, I went back onto the Banggood website for this particular kit, and there's a link for the instructions. In fact, quite a nice PDF, colour photos, and step by step, 1, 2, 3, so and so, so on and so forth. So if we just look at the first one, we've got some LED, some resistors to fit. R1 and R5 are 10k, so that's going to be the resistor Mark 103, so that's 10 and 3 zeros, so 10k. R2, 3 and 4, 1.5k, so that's 1.5 and 2 zeros, so that's 1.5k, 1500. Yeah, so the instructions are quite nice. Very neatly done. So it will be these that I shall follow, because that's what they're there for. If I can put my tablet back together, it falls apart on me like it normally does. Gold. These magnetic things work quite well, but yeah, there we go. Okay, so I shall put that out the way, because I shall just have that in the corner of my eye while we're looking at it. Yeah, so let's get going. We have the main board, and the first thing to do, or step 1, is those resistors. Now, I need to find all the tools that I need to do this, and perhaps the most important ones are going to be, I don't know what you're seeing at the moment, my apologies for that, I'm not paying attention. Alright, so the tweezers are going to be mega important, because all of these components are absolutely tiny, so we're going to have to use the tweezers fairly extensively on this particular kit. Like I say, I think more and more of these kits are becoming surface mount, which for people who have never done soldering before isn't great. because it is much better to practice on through-hole components. But anyway, let's first of all get ourselves lined up, and we're looking for R1 and R5. So da-di-da-di-da, R1 and R5. There's R1, and where's R5? I can't see R5. I'm sure I'll find it eventually. There it is. Okay, so R1 and R5. We need to find 10k resistors, which will be marked 103. Shut up, bleeping at me. So let's see if we can find those. God, these things are tiny. I mean, I'm getting old now, and my eyesight isn't that good. What's that? Oh, I can't see what they are. Nope. Don't know what they are. What's these? I am looking for. I think these are little capacitors, actually. We have a 3M sticky pad there. One of these. They're not marked with anything. This is not good. What are all of these? These have got to be them, haven't they? Here we go. Staring me in the face. So these are, yep, 103. Let's see if we can focus on that so you can see 103, and they will go in locations R1 and R5, so there and there. So what I will do is I will show you the first one so you can see how I go about soldering these very, very tiny surface mount components with my great big fat cumbersome hands and a pointy soldering iron. If I can possibly get into open up these little resistors, there we go, and take the first one out, and there she is. Tiny, tiny, tiny resistor. That's what you're working with. However, your best friend is your tweezers. So let's start off with, let's do R5. Now, I normally like to try and see if I can get my I don't know how much of that you're going to see. It's a case of trying to, yeah, it's kind of in focus, isn't it? So the way I do this is, where's my solder? You can see I'm organised for this. Where's my damn solder gone? There it is. So I use this very thin solder as always, because that way I tend to find you can control it a lot better. And here's my soldering iron. So R5 is there, and you've got the two pads for R5. So what I'm going to do is just put a bit of solder on that pad, and then I am going to grab the resistor like that, and then I'm going to reheat the solder. With a hash of that, let's start that again. Reheat the solder, offer up the chip, or the resistor in this case, then press down on the chip, the resistor with my tweezers, and reheat. And as you do that, the resistor falls flat against the PCB. Just going to reheat that and move it slightly over, and again press down on it, reheat, and it's nice and flat against the board. And that's how I do it. And then of course what we then have to do is solder. Hang on, if I can get around resistors stuck to my hand. Then what we have to do is solder the other side like that, and you'll find that the solder flows quite happily towards the component, our little resistor, and let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's all right. It's never pretty, but it works. So that was R5, and we have to do another one, which is R1. So let's pop out another one of these. There we go. Just take one out at a time. Don't take them all out in one go, because you will lose them. They are so tiny. Right, what are we doing again? R1. Okay, so I'm going to try and do this without the magnifying glass, or should I? Keep on going out of focus, don't we? Right, focus. Unfortunately, I have to move this up a bit, otherwise I can't see it. So R1, let's solder one pad, and then we grab our tiny little resistor, spin that round, heat up the solder again, melt it, offer up the resistor, and then press down on the resistor, reheat, and it falls flat against the PCB. And now we can just solder the other side like that. Easy. Let's have a look at how that one's come out. Yeah. Ooh, a bit peaky. Look at that. Solder everywhere. But, yeah, no bridge connections or anything. Let's see if I can get that peak off a bit. There we go. A bit neater. And, yeah, there we have it. So, that's taken an awful long time just for two components. Now, all the other resistors are going to be the same, so I'm going to hunt those down and install those. And once I've done that, I will come back. Right, okay, so I've got a bunch of resistors in. Where are they? If we can try and sharpen this up a bit for you. Oh, upside down. So R3, R4, R1 and R2. See, R2 is 152, R1 103, 152 and 152 for R3 and R4, and 103 over here for R5. Now the next thing it's asking us to do is to install these two guys, a couple of capacitors in these square packages like this, and we've also got to install a bunch of surface mount capacitors, these sorts of things. So again, you can see they're exactly the same as the resistors. Solder one end, hold it down, reheat, make sure it's flat against the PCB, and solder the other end. Fairly straightforward, very similar with these. These are a bit different insofar as you've got these metal tabs, if you like, to solder up against. But again, you know, a bit of heat and the solder will just flow straight on those. So let's see if we can open these. I said that, you know, most difficult thing about this kit so far is getting components out of their respective packages. Alright, let's get these two out like that, and we are dealing with, as far as O2 caps are concerned, C4 and C5, and now 47 microfarad and marked 476. Oop, I'm wobbling. There you go. 476, and they go at locations C4 and C5. There and there. Now it looks like we do have to be conscious of polarity, and you'll see that there is a dark coloured band on one end of the capacitor, and that's obviously the same on both. And you'll see on C4 and C5 on the PCB, the screen, or the silk screen, is kind of rounded on that side, and that's the side that the band goes on. So let me first of all get the old magnifying glass ready so I can see what I'm doing, because that's always a good idea. Right, I'm going to have to move this about a bit, otherwise I can't see it. Right, there we go. So I shall put solder on each pad like that, and grab one of the caps, this one, and you can see I'll tell you something, trying to do soldering when there's a camera up your nose is quite tricky. Okay, that didn't feel very flat to me, but it is. See, that's nice and flat against the board. Let's grab the other capacitor before we lose it, and again get the thing orientated on your tweezers. And again, I need to move it up a bit so I can see what I'm doing. Yep, that's nice and flat. And all we need to do now is to solder to other ends. Can you see that? Yes, you can, just about. I can only see it just about. This is not a very good setup, it has to be said. Right, so there we go. That is those two caps installed. And as I say, not the prettiest job in the world, a little bit off centre, doesn't matter. It's soldered at the right orientation onto the right pad. So I've got a bunch more of these tiny little caps. Is that them? I don't know. I shall have to have a look. It's either those, or it's those, or whatever they are. There's a sticky pad there for something. Work that out as we go along. There's our headphone jack, which is all very good. Got some spaces there as well. Right, so getting carried away now. Yeah, so I'm going to ooh, we've got another little transistory type thing there. Oh, you don't know what it is. Might be an inductor. Inductor? No, probably not. We've got something that's in red plastic here. Oh, I think those might be LEDs. Right, okay, let's just follow the instructions and get moving. So what I want to do is get rid of the capacitors, get the capacitors done, and all of the resistors. We've got a couple of little inductors as well. They're all exactly the same packages, 99% of the components here, and they're all installed like that. So what I should do is that those types of component like these, I'll just go ahead and install all those, because the method of installations is exactly the same for all of them, basically. And when there's something a bit more interesting to do, like that chip, for example, or even connecting the battery up, when we get to all those sorts of exciting things. There's 2 chips here. I don't think I've actually got 2 chips. I could be wrong. Probably have. Anyway, oh, I have got 2 chips. I lie. So when we get that, and we might be putting some flux on there and doing all sorts of clever stuff to get this beastie going. So yeah, all right, be back soon. Right, okay, so here we go. We have installed a a load of more capacitors and inductors. You see L1, that's an inductor. L2 and L3, they're inductors, and so on. And these large 47 puff caps, which we installed last time. The next thing to do is to install the 2 chips, and I will show you the way that I do that. Right, okay, so let's install these chips. There's 2 chips. We're going to start off with the larger one, and here's the oh no, that's not the chip. Where is it? There it is. And that's the smaller one. I'm guessing one of them is a processor and one of them is audio, probably. Imagine the smaller one's an audio chip of some sort. And the other thing is, I'm probably going to use a little bit of flux just to help flow the pads, the solder onto the pads. So the way I do these is, assuming my iron is now warm enough, is to, let's bring this down a little bit, is to just put a bit of solder on one pad. Now you will see on the silk screen there's a notch in the shape of the chip. Now there's actually no notch in the chip itself, but there is a little dot, and that will signify the same location as a chip that would have had a notch. So what I'm going to do is I am going to try and just, yeah, that's probably about right. I just need to line it up a little bit. So I've just got that one pin soldered in. I'm now going to put a bit of pressure on the chip, resolder that, and that just seats it in a little bit more comfortably. So hopefully all the pads, if I can get some focus on this, all the pads are now neatly lined up with the pins on the chip. Just that chip there, that pin there is soldered, and that's just holding everything in position. Now, do I use the flux? Don't know. I never know when to use flux or not. Let's put a bit on, and conscious of focus, I was going to put a little bit of flux on there, and just hope that will just make the flow of the solder that little bit more acceptable. So let's try soldering some of these pins. Let's start this end. Well, that's not gone well. My iron may not be quite hot enough. I only just switched it on for a very short time ago. Let's have a look at that. I need to bring that up to my eyeball. No, it might be that the iron was just a little bit too weak at that point. What about you? I don't think this focus is working as brilliantly as it could do. Let's bring it down a little bit. Okay, so let's hang on. I've got a blob on the end of my solder there, don't want that. Possibly could have put a bit more flux on it actually. We'll see. There we go. So that one's in. Still got a blob on the end of this. I'm actually doing this through the camera. That's a bit better. There we go, and it's flowing quite nicely. The flux is definitely helping. You can see how the solder just sort of flows and sort of just runs towards the pin, and there you go, like that. I'm going to do that first one again because that was not as good. That's better. And you can see it's quite shiny, the solder, which is what you want. The other thing is oh, I think I might have a bridge there. I think I do. You can see just there. See if I can just get the solder in there. There we go. That's got rid of that bridge. Probably got a little bit of a peak on that end joint there. But hopefully that is reasonably... Sorry about the shaky camera. It's on one of these arms, and now I'm knocking the magnifying glass. But there you go. So that's how it goes, and I'm just gonna do the other side, and I will do that smaller chip in exactly the same way. Right, well, the next stage is to fit the LEDs, but I've come across a slight problem. If I move some of this stuff out of the way, I'll be able to show you what the problem is. Okay. Right, so this is the instructions, and the bit I'm concerned about is this bit, where it tells you to install the LEDs. But the problem is, of course, as you can see there, it's written in Chinese, and there's LED 1, LED 2 and LED 3. And sadly I don't read Chinese. However, Google Translate, if you've got it on your mobile phone or something like that, does have a very clever facility on it where with a camera function whereby I get my so here we go. It's got a camera function, and if you let's bring this up a little bit, if you place it over the text, it will read the text. You see it's asking me to align the text there. Let's see if I can actually get it to work. Oh, flash 288. So LED 1, it's 288 flash. Now that's interesting because now that one's green and that one is red. So what it's basically telling me is, what I think it's telling me is that, let's get that light out of the way. That text there means it means colourful. In other words, I think that's a multicoloured LED. That one is green and that one is red. Now, with that sorted out, I've now got to have a look at the LEDs that we get sent. So let's try and bring some more light back on the table. And so I need to now hook out all the LEDs that we have got in the various packages. There we go. Right, well, first of all, this one, I'm guessing these are red LEDs, so that's fairly straightforward. It's got a red tape on it, so I'm going to assume that's red. We've then got this one, which is coloured green, so those are the green LEDs. And these, which are also green at the back, but if you actually look at them, they are fairly, I think there's more than one LED chip in there, which means that I'm guessing these are the multicolour ones, i.e. colourful. So that's what I'm going with, multicoloured, obviously red, and deduce that they're the green ones. And that is what I'm going to follow. So hopefully I'm right. The next thing to bear in mind is that let's do right LED 2 and LED 3 One of them is, so LED2 is green, so that will be this one. And I've got 2 chips, but I think there's only 3 chips that you need. There are extra components in most of the stuff supplied in this kit, which is just as well because these things are so tiny. And oh, there we go, they've both fallen out. These are so small, it's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Let's bring the magnifier in a little bit and see if we can zoom in, and you'll better see what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on there. I've just gone and completely screwed up the lighting. Right. Okay. So there's our board, which is upside down, but we've got, hang on. Ah, now here's something I didn't realise. Ah, now. Should have looked at the board. There you go. LED2 green, LED2 green, LED3 red, R for red. Well, at least I was right. And then down here, RGB, red, green, blue. So that's the multicoloured one, LED one. And you'll see that the shape of the screen, the silk screen, is got, again, like a curved or rounded end at one end. That is going to be for the negative side of the LED. So we need to make sure we get the polarity right. The real trick, of course, is being able to see them, because these are so tiny, so tiny. And there you go, there's one of the LEDs. Let's see if I can focus on that at all. If I get that out of the way, you can see there's a little green mark on there which will tell you the direction, but I have to admit I can never remember what each of the symbols mean, because there's several different styles of LED symbol. So I need to double check which end is going to be the negative. One's cathode and one's nanode. Nanode? No. Cathode and anode. Oh, I don't know. I've got no idea what I'm talking about. Well, at least I've learned how to use Google Translate. So let me double check the polarity of these LEDs. Right, okay, I think I've got that sorted now. So I'm going to take one of these tiny chips. Now, you remember that there was the green triangle on all of them, and the triangle points to the cathode. So the cathode, I believe, is going to be have I got this the right way up? No, where is it? There we go. So is this end, not that end, but this end of LED 2 and 3. So, and I can't even remember which one I'm doing now. I'm doing the green one, aren't I? So the green one is LED 2, and I just need to make sure that I'm pointing this in. I'm pointing this in the right direction. You're not going to see this so easily on camera. I don't think you will anyway. You can see. Can you see that direction? A little triangle. No, probably not. Anyway, so that's going to point. Let's just point that down there, and you can actually see on the chip either side a green marking, which will tell you quite easily which is the cathode end. So I'm going to attempt to solder the cathode in. You'll have to forgive me because I'm trying to look through the camera, I'm trying to look through the magnifying glass, and it's all getting a bit fraught. Right, there we go. We offer that one in. Come on. You really can't leave too much heat on the LEDs because heat can destroy them. So with that end in, I think. Is this focusing? Autofocus on this thing's bloody useless. and there we go. That's the LED installed. If I can get it to focus a little bit, and you can see the green tint. What's something to point with? Let's use this. You can see the green tint on the LED going towards the cathode. So I've got LED 3 to do, and I've got one down there, so I shall get those installed now. Oh, right, they were a pain in the bum, but not too bad. Very, very fiddly. One of the important things is that when you're grabbing a component with tweezers, don't squeeze too hard, because a component can fly off and you will never see it again. The only thing I'll see it again is the vacuum cleaner. So yeah, be conscious of that. Okay, so the next thing we have got to do is install a switch at point S6. So let's try and find S6 on here. So we can, there it is, S6. And this is said switch. Again, everything on this kit is so tiny. Even the switch, tiny little switch, and you can see the multiple connections it's got on it. All of those have to be soldered up. So it's rather like the microchip in terms of fitting this one on. So let's get this in a position where we can both see. Like that, I think. I should just about do it. Check the focus, and then choose one of the switch pads. That one, I think. And then offer up the switch using the tweezers. This is going to be easier said than done. Probably should have chosen a different pad, to be honest, but there we go. See, there we go. That plopped in quite nicely. And the next thing to do is, using the tweezers, is to try and line up all the pads, straighten out the switch whilst melting the solder while I do that. I think that does it. So that holds it into place. So now I'm free to solder the remaining contacts. Okay, so the switch is now suitably soldered into position, like that. And the next job is to fit the micro USB connector. Now, here you've got 5 connectors, but all we're interested in is the outer 2, because that's where the power is provided. The inner 3 for our data transmit, receive and ground. And we can get rid of them. We don't want them, because there is no data going to be coming in and out of this kit. It's just going to be power. So what we can do is, and they tell you to do this in the instructions. Oh, I'm going to bend that end pin. Need to be careful that I don't bend that one. He says, having bent it. This is where, so these pliers are a little bit on the large side. I've got a smaller pair, but the point being is that you bend up the pins that you don't want, which is the middle 3, and then cut them off. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to have to do that off camera because I just can't see closely enough what I'm doing. And if I try and do it through the camera, I'm probably going to cocker all that. So I'm going to get my thinner pair of pliers, bend them up, and then snip those unnecessary pins off, and then solder it down to the board. Okay, so that is now the micro USB port installed. You can see there's only the 2 outer pins are soldered, and then you've got a couple of blobs of solder each side which holds the thing firmly onto the board. The next step is this tiny little crystal oscillator, and that is installed right here. So you can see that we need to cut the leads fairly short, and we also need to solder the can, i.e. the case of the oscillator, onto the board as well. Again, this is really going to be a case of, as always, offering up, putting some solder on one pad, offering up one of the pins, soldering it down, and using that to hold the component in place while I solder the rest of it. So I shall install that. Right, well, we're slowly getting there. So we can see that we've got the crystal oscillator installed, blob of solder each end here to keep contact with the can, and the two connectors at the end. It's not polarity critical, but this next component is, and that is a diode. And I'll just show you the beastie here. That's the diode, which is upside down, and you can see, hopefully, you can see there's a band, and that needs to be placed at this location, and the band, which you can see there, so let's turn this round, the diode will be installed like that, with the band at this end. So let's do that. Let's see if we can do this through the camera lens rather than the magnifier. There we go. Get hold of the diode, which is now jumping about like a Mexican jumping bean. There we go. Let's just reposition this because I've got to get it over the USB port. There we go. So there's only just a tiny little tab on the diode that the solder needs to grow onto, which it has done. Now I'm going to press down on the diode, drop it in place, move it along a bit, and you can see there's plenty of space there left with the pad to solder up the other end. If I can find my solder. Oh, we're done with that. There it is. Okie dokie. There we go. And that is the diode installed. Like that. Okay. Now, the next fun task is the headphone jack, which is this beastie. And this goes there. And you can see again, we've got tabs to solder like that. So let's solder one pad first. Focus, please, today. Hey, hurrah. And bit of solder on that pad. And I probably don't need the tweezers for this. Sorry, I was knocking you about there a bit. So get that roughly in the right place, melt the solder, grabs the pad nicely, so that's nice and flat onto the PCB, and the tabs are lining up there. and that's a headphone jack. Job is a good one. Held nice and firmly on the board. Great. Now the next thing is switches, of which there are 4, and it's these guys. Not that you can see them, now you can. And they're all push to make switches. They're all exactly the same, and they are located switch 1 there, switch 2, switch 3, switch 4. So like with the other components, blob of solder, offer it up, solder the other 3. So I shall get on and do that, and I will show you the outcome. Exciting stuff. Right, okie dokie, we have got the switches installed, and the next trick is a bit unusual, but we have to take this back plate with our transformer friend on the back of it, and we have to line up the back plate with the PCB in such a way. I don't think I've got that right. It needs to go that way. Nope. It was right the first time. Yeah, so that these 4 holes, there, and there, line up with these 4 plates. Not that one, I don't think. I don't think there's a hole for that one, is there? Oh, there is. Yeah, and the idea is we fill these with solder so that the PCB is attached to that backplate. So that then gives us the rear of the radio, which is quite a neat idea. Yeah, what I need to do is first of all tape it together so it doesn't slide about, and then we can get a whole load of solder in there to hold the 2 together. Okay, so I've got some sticky tape holding these 2 together, and now the thing to do is to hit it with a lot of solder to connect those together. I keep on losing my solder, but I think I need a new bit at any rate, because that's going to take a fair amount of solder, I think. So let me get some more solder, and we can start filling those holes to connect the 2 boards together. So let's start off with this one. The problem is it's quite a large hole, and there's going to be a bit of a heat sink effect. And I've only got a very fine tip on my soldering iron, so it takes a little bit of, there we go. Yep. And we just do that for all 5 of them. Let's basically fill it up with solder, and that will hold the 2 boards together. So it's a little bit fiddly. Whoops, that's not working. Need to do quite a bit of heat on it, and then we'll wiggle it out of it, and there we go. So I'll do the other 3 now. Right, so that's the 2 boards soldered together reasonably neatly, I think. Slightly out there. Anyway, it's all soldered, so you can see the great lumps of solder in there, like that. Okay, so the next thing to do is to sort out the battery, which is rechargeable, which I think is great. That's not bad at all. The fact that it's rechargeable, I'm happy with that. So let's take that masking tape off the battery, which is holding the 2 two wires together. It's a shame the battery is not marked, so I don't know what capacity it is, but it's a little LiPo, I suppose. And the battery has to be soldered on to these two contacts here. It's marked plus and minus, so let's do that. Okay, and I probably want to bring the soldering iron round the other way, and we will. That's the plus, or the positive rather, and then if it will play ball with me, which it doesn't really want to. It's jumping about all over the place here. Right, here we go. And that's attached. And they supply you a little 3M sticky pad, which you are supposed to place. Let me get one piece off right here. Now actually, before I do that, there's a component there which I have not installed yet. So I've missed a stage somewhere. So let's get this very, very sticky pad to one side, having taken one protective layer off, and I have not installed this guy yet. Let me do that and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so I put that little chip in there underneath the battery there, which has now got the sticky pad on it, and I've stuck the battery on the top. Whilst doing so, you can see I've twisted the wires here just to keep them together so they're not flapping about in the breeze, and also routed them away from, or trying to route them away from the switch so they don't get caught up with any switch mechanism. And I think we are good to go to the next stage, which will be, well, basically, hang on, I've got a spare switch here. Have I missed? I think I've just got an extra switch there. I think what we do next is start screwing this beastie together. So I need to find a suitable screwdriver. All the screws appear to be Phillips type screws, so that's fairly straightforward. And the first thing to do is to screw onto each corner one of these risers like that. So let's do that. They go together quite firmly. That's one at each corner. I must say that the design of this little radio is actually quite interesting. There's a lot to it, and I've not found this a straightforward build. I mean it's easy enough, but it's very quite fiddly. You've certainly got to concentrate because the components are so apocalyptically tiny on every single component. There's no component of any significant size at all in this kit, so it does make it quite a challenge. If you're not into soldering before, this is probably not one for you, I wouldn't have thought. so you get a bit more practice. So I think that's where we're going. Now the next thing is this guy, which is the PCB board, which goes on there like that. It says install it, but I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to install it. There's no particularly obvious way that fits in, unless it needs to be glued in. Oh well, we've got a couple of tabs there. Oh wow, okay. We do have some solder points there. I'm not entirely sure where one solder. Oh, well, I've got that the wrong way around, haven't I? Let's start that again. So that goes like that. And I assume there must be some solder points, but nothing obvious. Unless it just gets held in place by the top panel. Ah, yes it does. Right, okay, so we've got that. The next thing to do is to remove all the paper off the risers which form the sides of the case, and you can see there's a slot in there. So I think what happens is that that piece slots in there and gets trapped there. So first thing I need to do is to remove all the paper backing, all this backing from the acrylic pieces, which can take some time, so I shall do that now. Right, I've got all the protective paper off the case, all the case parts, and if you remember that practice board that kit came with, it has to be soldered in the same way as the backplate does to the PCB. So I've actually done that, and you can see here again exactly the same process, just fill that with solder, and that is our front plate, which has got all the instructions for the buttons. So that will be searching radio stations up and down, volume up and down. And yeah, so the next thing to do, I think, is to start building up the case by placing it piece by piece on here. Now I think we probably need to get this plate back in again before we do that, would be my guess. Let's pop that in there, just leave it in there for the moment and get the first plate on and get that lined up. And has that gone in? Doesn't feel like it's gone in. No, it hasn't. There we go. And as you can see that the acrylic piece is grabbing that very firmly, in fact, very firmly. So that's good. And then the next piece. Probably better off putting the front pieces on first and the back pieces on last. Get that lined up. There we go. And the same with the back. Okay. And the last one, again the same. And that's pretty much in there. Great. That's it. Now the next thing to do will be the buttons. So each button has one of these plastic tops. I've got no idea if this radio is going to work yet. I'm putting it all together. I could be stripping it apart in a minute, trying trying to fix it. And yeah, so which way around does this go? Yeah, that looks about right. All the buttons are in. The buttons are quite nicely flush. Yeah, that works nicely. So the actual distance now, that top plate has got a couple of lugs at the top. There's a couple of lugs there that actually go into that practice board, or what they call a practice board. And the final thing, I guess, is to put a screw in at each corner, and hopefully we have a working radio. I know this isn't very exciting watching me put 4 screws in. And there it is. There is the completed radio. Now, I think before I'm going to power it up, it is rechargeable, so I have got a power supply here, micro USB, and I am going to charge it up fully. I presume we'll get an LED indicator to show charging. Let's find out. I'm struggling. I'm doing this through the camera again and I can't see a damn thing. Oh, I'm trying to put it in the wrong place. That doesn't help. Right, here we go. There we go. And that, ooh, we have a light there and we have a light there. Let's switch these lights off. Right, so we have green there and we have red there. Does green mean it's fully charged? Or was that just turned red? That's obviously the RGB light. I'm wondering if red means charging and we've got a green LED there. I'm wondering if once the battery's full, that turns green. Yeah, that just seems to be making pretty colours at the moment. So let's ignore that one and focus on that. I'm going to leave it for a while, see if it does charge up, and then once it's done that, we'll give it a bit of a test. Right, well I think it's been charging for long enough. So let's unplug it. Now, obviously, it comes with these headphones. I'll try those out in a minute, but I'll put those to one side for a moment. But being headphones, you're not going to be able to hear anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this Bluetooth speaker, which has got a 3.5mm jack on it, and hopefully, ooh, that's interesting because I haven't got the thing. Have I got it switched on? Oh, I have got it switched on. So let's bring the volume up a bit. We hear a hiss. Let's see if we can get a radio station.
Different studies that tend to show that lesbians tend to have a higher body mass index than the heterosexual counterparts. Gay men, on the other hand, tend to be underweight.
Oh,
There's a whole...
Let's move on. Searching.
You're sitting down wondering what it's all about. You ain't got no money, they will put you out.
Volume up and down. Oh.
Get out of here.
Now obviously the radio is going to be restricted by the antenna insofar as the antenna is actually the headphone cables, or in this case this short 3.5mm to our 3.5mm jack, but let's yeah, let's just switch it off. I'll switch it back on again, and we've got a red LED there, which is, I guess, just to show that it's powered on. And so let's try searching again. Now there's no, that's gone green. That's just showing different colour. I'm just wondering if that LED there, the RGB LED, is just for display, but let's Well, I'm not seem to be getting anything out of it at all at the moment. It was certainly working a minute ago. It's gone dead. Let me have a play. Oh, well, it seems to be working again. It just kind of just died for a bit there, but it's working up again. So let's try tuning in.
Which actor from the TV show Friends also appeared in the film Lost in Space?
Well, it's certainly working, and the sound quality coming out of there is absolutely excellent.
It took two brothers.
And me, a designer.
A software engineer. They manufacture.
I was faced with a choice at a difficult age. Would I write a book, or should I take...
Every day, with a little extra from up.
Right, that seems to be fine. I think the problem is that it covers quite a wide spectrum of the FM band, and there's a lot of that band that isn't used in the UK, so I was probably spending time searching through that bit, and of course it wasn't finding anything, so it was silent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try these headphones. Obviously you're not going to be here, but I just want to, you're not going to be able to hear, I just want to... Well, the quality of these headphones is absolutely appalling, but if you put a decent set of headphones in this, I think it's going to sound absolutely fantastic. I mean, it came through that speaker and it was beautifully clear and very, very high quality. So I think that's a big, big win. Very pleased with that. It works very well, worked first time. Nice size, not particularly big, rechargeable. If you do listen to the FM bands, then, you know, this is great. Absolutely great. I really, really like it. Now, this cost me £7.24 shipped. For £7.24, you get quite a nice little radio, plus the entertainment of building it, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I really do. Now, there are lots of leftover components, loads of them in fact, certainly in terms of resistors, and the idea is that you use these resistors on the practice board, which is also part of the casing now, just to get a feel for using those tiny little or installing those tiny little components. So there we have it, FM stereo YFM-1 from EQKIT. Absolutely great. I think that's a big win. I enjoyed that. As I say, don't get too excited about these headphones. They're not great, but the actual radio itself, very, very impressed. Particularly because it's rechargeable through micro USB. So certainly think that is a good afternoon or evenings project for anybody who likes building these kits. At any rate, I have got more kits quite a few more actually. So hopefully I'll be getting onto those in the not too distant. I know there's been a big gap between kit building at the moment, but you know, other things to do in life. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I certainly did, and we'll catch you down the line on the next one. For now, all the best. See you again. Cheers.